Hi, I'm some guy on the internet making a new garden and putting a video of it up online. Go figure. And this here garden is designed using permaculture designs from the amazing book Beauty in Abundance by Michael Hogue. And the garden was started last fall using a technique called sheet mulching. And this gives us an opportunity to address one of the great modern controversies of permaculture, the sheet mulching controversy, and how sheet mulching actually works, and the notorious cardboard barrier. And now, if you're not familiar with sheet mulching, it's a pretty amazing technique. I will never have a garden again without sheet mulching. I've sheet mulched now for about a decade and a half, and I'll never go back. I don't make a garden without using sheet mulching somewhere in it. It's just the easiest way I've ever found to start new garden beds. And as you can see, it's a kind of haphazard sheet mulch. It's a bit of a work in progress there behind me. And so you can see what a sheet mulch is it starts with a cardboard layer. And then since in this case, I'm doing the good enough sheet mulch from that amazing book I mentioned earlier, Beauty in Abundance by Michael Hogue, I just use a layer of cardboard or newspaper, and then I top it off with just about any kind of bulk organic matter I can. There's some layering of grass clippings in there. It's mostly leaves, sticks, whatever I had that I found around. So the controversy is that we now have some really good research that if there is a cardboard or paper weed barrier left in place, it can cause a soil to have some problems. It can easily become hydrophobic and repel water, so water doesn't soak into it. It can create a barrier for water infiltration generally and for airflow, things that we need in order to have high productivity in the garden. Now, so many people have said that sheet mulching doesn't work because of this research and scientific evidence. And now the way they tested this was to basically just use a plain newspaper or cardboard barrier as a weed barrier. But this is different than anything you'll find in the classic permaculture literature. The classic Toby Hemingway kind of sheet mulch, as he pointed out, is actually based on the idea that we get the cardboard down, and the sheet mulch itself, the cardboard layer is just transitional. It's just so we can turn a weedy area or grass or lawn into a garden bed. Then, ideally, we do this in time where the weed barrier, the cardboard, actually breaks down. So in the ideal permaculture sheet mulch, there is no weed barrier. There's no cardboard layer left on top to cause those problems that we see in the research. The sheet mulch itself is just a temporary thing, and once we get to the time the garden is planted, it's just a big deep mulch pile. So to really look at the research on it, we just need to look and see, does mulch work? And yes, mulch works fantastically well in a whole lot of situations. So, is this actually true? Some people have asked me about this. Now, since I've been sheet mulching for a decade and a half, I can say that pretty much every time I've done it, this has been true. When it's time to actually plant the garden, you go in there, and magically, the newspaper or cardboard layer is almost entirely deteriorated. The worms and soil biology have turned it into more soil over the course of the winter, so there's no barrier there by the time you go to plant. And I haven't seen anyone actually document this or show this, so I'm going to do that. I just actually got out the shovel here and started busting into one to plant some sea kale, which is part of the great dynamic perennial annual polyculture system in that amazing book, Beauty in Abundance. I just can't say enough good things about it. And I noticed that this would solve some of these questions. So let's go take a look and see what is underneath that sheet mulch where there used to be a cardboard weed barrier. So here you can see what we're looking at. Like I said, it was a layer of cardboard and then a bunch of different kinds of organic matter and sticks and whatever I could find stacked as deeply as I could right over top of it. It's basically the design everywhere throughout this garden bed here. So what happens when we look at this shovel here and look down to where I've broken the ground? As you see, right here, where's it at? I see some worms in there. You see that guy? And you see the soil. You see how I've pulled back all the mulch to expose the soil so I can plant my sea kale in there. And I see just beautiful, richer soil. It was a lot easier to dig into. The soil here was monstrous. This used to be a gravel driveway. I'm building soil on a gravel driveway. And there was a thin layer of soil on it, and I could barely get my shovel into it. Now, after being worked up by the sheet mulch over winter, I can get a shovel in there real easy, and I see no signs of the cardboard. Well, that's a lie. Now look over here. Some kind of critter dug in here and exposed a piece of the cardboard. So the cardboard is still there wherever it wasn't in soil contact with critters to break it down. And here's another spot where I pulled back the mulch. There was a little bit, you can see maybe still a little bit of cardboard in there. It basically disintegrated the second I started pushing around to plant that skirt. Just in real time, yet another spot. I don't know what's going on in here, but let's find out. Yeah. It looks like at this point you can see a little bit of cardboard still barely there. Look at that. But for the most part, once we get in there, I mean, the cardboard has disintegrated and taken the resident vegetation with it, which, as you can see here, beyond it in both directions, was just plain lawn. So, I think we can safely say that we just took that gardening myth and slapped it at the Oscars. Now, a funny thing about this is that it's become pretty common. A lot of the scientific gardening groups who hate this permaculture thing have begun proposing that a great alternative to sheet mulching, which doesn't work because of those studies I mentioned, is to just put down a bunch of bulk organic material right over your lawn or whatever without any kind of weed barrier. Now, I can tell you, I have done things like this. I've done things like this many times over a couple of decades. I could say 100% of the time, this does not kill the grass layer. The grass and weeds, whatever the resident vegetation, is going to come back 100% of the time. In fact, that's why I use it. I use it in cases where I want to get mulch down, but I'm also creating something like an edible meadow kind of system where I want the grasses to largely come through. So, and it works. It works 100% of the time. So I can say that this alternative method does not work. It will not work 100% of the time. It will not kill the resident vegetation and create a new garden bed, which is the whole purpose of the sheet mulch. And the sheet mulch does not have any problems because by the time you go to plant, if you've done it right and you use the right layer of cardboard and you know your own ecosystem and how things work there's no weed barrier left at the end of the season to prevent that water infiltration or disrupt airflow. Now I can say that might not apply to forms of sheet mulching I've seen where maybe the paper layer or the cardboard goes on top. That probably would, my sense of it, be disruption to water and airflow. But the standard sheet mulch with the cardboard in contact with the ground, the cardboard dissolves and goes away. Bye-bye. Nothing but a great mulch garden bed left over to plant into. So there we have it. A great mystery of the world of permaculture solved. At least here in this one garden.